So I just saw Asteroid City, and it was pretty good. And I get the feeling that even this movie's biggest fans would probably agree that this is not the film to introduce someone to Wes Anderson with. This is very much a film explicitly for people who are already fans of his work. The quirky, symmetrical Wes Anderson style was cranked up to 11, but compared to his greatest films, what was really missing was a proper conflict. The first act of this film took up basically half the movie, and there wasn't really any kind of narrative hook until the end of the first act. Just some symmetrically presented quirky style with solid humor and an all-star cast. The acting in this film was pretty great. There were even several child actors in this film that were not annoying. The way they were used in the film was perfectly appropriate, and they weren't expected to do anything outside their range. Now, compared to Wes Anderson's other films, this is particularly weird, and there are specific scenes and sequences that were really weird that I loved. But unfortunately, in the grand scheme of the film, it doesn't really take up that much of the runtime. I wanted this film to be even more ridiculous and even more weird, but unfortunately, most of the film felt pretty stagnant and repetitive. And speaking of repetitive, the film's score became absolutely grating over the course of the runtime. It's just the same two notes over and over and over and over. I get it, it's cute and it's quirky, but holy fuck, after an hour and 45 minutes of that, oh my god. I swear there was something similar done in some of his other films. Maybe my memory's wrong, but the Grand Budapest Hotel comes to mind, but I don't remember any of the scores from his films being this annoying and repetitive. It was definitely pushing it, and it was kind of frustrating. Still, like I said, this film has some incredible visuals and style and personality, but I wish that all of that was complemented by a solid foundation. Sure, this film has a star-studded cast with great performances, but for the majority of the film, it's not servicing anything digestible. I understand that this particular film is one that he wanted to be more interpretable, but it really did not strike the right balance for me to be invested in what I was watching. Either crank up the weird shit and have more of it, or give us some goals or stakes that we can follow throughout the film. Anyway, check this one out if you want, but if you're not already a fan of Wes Anderson and love his style, then I'd suggest starting with something like Moonrise Kingdom or Fantastic Mr. Fox or The Grand Budapest Hotel, as those films are easily more digestible than this one was. I will be watching this film again at some point, and I'm interested in seeing people's interpretations, but I'm certainly not rushing back to it, and we'll see whenever that winds up being. As for now, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's closer to, I don't know, I thought it was closer to a 7, and now that I'm talking about it for a bit, I'm like, is it closer to a 5? We'll see what it's like on a rewatch. Maybe it'll go up a point, maybe it'll go down a point, but let's just call it a solid 6 for now. Thank you. I also saw a film called Past Lives, and I thought it was pretty great. This is the feature-length debut from director Celine Song. The film follows two Korean childhood friends who reconnect after decades after one of them immigrated to North America. Now, this is obviously a very personal story for the writer-director Celine Song, as she also was born in South Korea and moved to Canada when she was 12. What I really love about this film is that everything seems to fit really appropriately. The story is simple and contained, but it's also exactly what it needs to be. The directing style is reserved, but also meticulous. This is not a film that gets showy and in your face with the visuals, but throughout the entire film, it still looks really fantastic. There's great framing and lighting and color grading. The film's score was also really great. Again, nothing too show-offy, but it feels incredibly fitting and really complements the film. I also loved the attention to detail when it came to technology. The film takes place over 24 years, and whenever they show technology, it feels really accurate to the time period. The visuals of the old Facebook UI and Skype and the way that calls are shown on the screen, it all feels super real, and I'm glad that there was thought and care put into that. The performances in this film are also pretty great, and that combined with the film's writing really helped bring to life characters that I actually cared about. There were honestly points in this movie that I felt frustrated because of what characters were doing, but not in the horror movie trope sense where everyone one's just really stupid so that the plot happens, but in the sense that I actually felt bad for the characters on screen. One of my issues with this film is that there's a point where this self-aware meta dialogue becomes a bit much. Thankfully, it doesn't take up a huge portion of the film, but it did take me out of the movie a bit. I also wish that there was more detail when it came to sound environments in this film. This happens in like every movie that's not directed by David Fincher, but it still bothers me the same, where characters are talking to each other in a bar and they're essentially whispering to each other even though the music would be drowning out what they're saying. It's just something that I wish more directors would consider or would be more aware of. Again, David Fincher has no issues with this, but I'm going to keep complaining about it until it becomes a thing of the past. I also felt as though a bit more could have been done to show contrast in the character's appearance. When the story starts out, they're child actors, and then 12 years later, they're adult actors, and within that 12-year gap, it looks as though they've aged 24 years, and then another 12 years go by, and the actors look exactly the same. So it looks like they aged 24 years in the first 12-year gap, and then 0 years in the second 12-year gap. Who knows, maybe there were some subtle changes to their appearance that I just didn't pick up on a first watch. And also, this isn't a huge budget movie or anything, so I guess we'll just have to use our imaginations. Still, despite a couple criticisms, I really loved this movie overall. It was nice and short and sweet. It was sad, it was heartfelt, it was funny, it had great pacing, and the whole thing pretty much just flew by for me. So yeah, if this one seems interesting to you, then check this one out whenever you can. And I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Thank you.